Hello there. I am going to get off into chapter 8, but I feel I need to recap something that's very important from chapter 7 because I was running out of video time. I just kind of went over it too fast. And that is the part, let's see here, and they, being the giants, began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh. Now, one another is the giants. These guys are actually turning on themselves at this point because they have such an insatiable appetite, spiritually, physically, and because they don't really belong, their bodies are in trouble. There's no place for their bodies here on earth. Now, why sin against animals, fish, and so on and so forth? What does that mean? A lot of people tell you different things. All I can tell you is what I believe. I think they're working on bodies, because we're still talking about these souls that aren't numbered. They don't really have DNA codes that will line up with the recorded DNA souls in the book of life. Every individual is different, and it's that way for a reason. We're talking about a lot of bodies here, and no two are alike, or exactly alike, I should say. I mean, there's similarities. You can always walk down the street and somebody looks like your dad, and makes, oh, that guy looks like my dad. That being said, he ain't your dad. So we got these guys walking around in these bodies, and nothing really fits them. And they're probably dying out, these bodies that these things are having, these giants' bodies. They're huge, they're cumbersome, they're heavy. You can't get enough food for them, you can't get enough servants to, and it's like they don't fit this world. So when I see where they're sinning against the birds and the bees, and specifically reptiles, which is here, I believe that there's probably animals, types of beings that society has created legend for, that is actually experiments from these watchers who, remember, their fathers who are still in this earth today are very smart individuals. I mean, these guys they were appointed as a help to this world. I mean, they were part of the design of how this world works. Science and chemistry is very much a big part of that. So we're talking about heavily smart individuals, and I think what they're trying to do is construct bodies for themselves out of these parts that God has created to be reptiles and fish and animals and so on and so forth. God created these things for a purpose on earth, and I think here they are fooling around with them because they're sinning against them. They're making them something different other than what God created them to be. Now, think about all the urban legends we have with the Mothman and Sasquatch and the Yeti and the Chupacabra and all these things that, we hear all these little small town legends to explain what they are. Now, think about these creatures that are maybe very well walking around today harboring the spirits of the giants, because we're going to learn later, these guys ain't going nowhere. There's no heaven for them, there's no hell for them, there's place put upside for them. But God will state in this book, and these guys they're still here on this earth, and they got to be in some form if they're going to interact with man anyway. So with that being said, to me, that's what sinning against the birds, beasts, reptiles, fish, and then you see where they start to devour one another's flesh, because they're and just on and on and on. Now we're going to start chapter 8 if I got time in this video. Let's see, it's fairly short, I ought to have it. Chapter 8. And Azazel taught men to make swords. Now here's something interesting. This guy's coming here, these leaders, these spirits that I believe is in being possessed in men's bodies, he's teaching guys how to make swords and knives and shields. Now this is, and breastplates. These are instruments of war. Why do these guys need this? Why do these guys, as soon as they hit the ground a running, the first thing is they teach us how to make dope, to get our minds opened up to these spirits. And the next thing they're teaching is instruments of war. I mean, isn't there anything good these guys want to teach us? The answer is no. They don't have anything good they want to teach us. They're building an army and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth. Them is, as you see, is green with red in it. We're talking about people that were born to be the children of God, but now their insides have turned to evil. To them, metals of the earth, and the art of working them. When I read this, my mind went to alchemy and so on and so forth, and just turning metals, turning like metals into hard metals, instruments of war, and so on and so forth. But again, these guys, they don't really have anything good to teach us. God's trying to teach us, how to be peaceful and loving, and these guys are making sure we know how to make war and so forth. And working them, and bracelets and ornaments. Now, this is no small things, because bracelets and ornaments, and people read right through that. But bracelets and ornaments are instruments of vanity. When you're poor and you don't have bracelets and ornaments, you look up at the guy with the bracelets and ornaments as if he's all that in a bag of chips. And the only one we're supposed to look up to that's all that in the bag of chips is our God and Savior. So what we're doing is we're creating this step. We're creating these steps for mankind to where you can evolute yourself up to power, property, and these to where the rest of the world will look at you. So it's kind of the same thing as fame. It's dangerous. And the use of antimony and the beautifying of eyelids and all kinds of costly stones. Now this anatomy, I believe, is where they take metal stones that they find in the earth that's kind of porous, but it looks like silver. It looks like metallic, and you crush it, make a powder out of it, and these women would do their eyelids. Interestingly enough, to make you look metallic, or as a machine, or as a robot, and I think that's interesting. They think that the metallic look is all that in a bag of chips. Okay. Stone, all kind of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures, and there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication. This tinctures, I believe, is hard liquor. It seems like I did a small study after this. Yeah, here we go. You see here the tincture from Wikipedia is saying that it's this glass. It almost looks like a wine, but it's super strong. It's got 90 or 180 proof. So we're talking about the first glimpse we have of hard liquor. And here they are giving us the properties and the ability to make hard liquor. Well, isn't that interesting? Dope and booze, instruments of war. These guys are really helping. They're looking out for us, ain't they? No, they ain't. They're lining up our destruction. And there arose much godliness, and they committed fornication, as they were led astray. They, as all green, because it was God's people, but now we're being led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Semajias taught enhancements in root cutting. Aramoros, the revealing of enchantments. Now we're talking about witchcraft here. We're talking about how to get people to act in a certain way without you knowing that that's what they're doing to you. That's witchcraft. And it's the language of witches. It's been practiced all the way since the beginning. And that's what we're talking about. They're bringing us all these evil things. Let's see, Barakazil taught astrology. They looked very heavily, not to say that astrology was created for the ungodly, it wouldn't, but remember, these guys were created to make these things work. They were created to keep these things running. They were the watchers. They were the watch, like if you created a great machine in a factory, and all these guys had positions over certain areas of this factory, and it was their job to oil them and take care of them and tweak them and tighten the chain. Well, I'm speaking figuratively, of course, But that's what their job was. I mean, they were to run these things. Now here they are with all these knowledges of all these things, and now they want to use them for their own purpose and not God's. And Kokabel, the constellations. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Interesting. Erikiel, the signs of the earth, like the winds and how the waters and how the great magnets in the earth, the north and south pole, all these things, how they work. Samaziel, the signs of the sun, and Serial, the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. Now, this is because everything's screwed up at this point. These guys have infiltrated God's plan. They've taught God's children how to do dopes and booze, and they taught them how to do enchantments, working the witchcraft. They taught them instruments of war. Now we got skirmishes that are coming up. We got, instead of 10, 15 warriors killing one another, now hell, we got hundreds and hundreds of people on battlefields now with these new instruments. So we got all this death and all these things that God were trying to the opposite of what God was trying to give us. And damn if we ain't got these guys doing the opposite thing, feeding us all this garbage, keeping us from God. So you have to ask yourself, what is it they're after? What do they want? And sadly that answer is they want you. Like I said, they're building an army, and I guess they figure that if they can turn enough souls against God, then they will have this battle won. Because these guys are fighting for their very lives now. They've already screwed up, and they knew when they went into this plan that they were going against God, and they knew what the payment was. The only thing is, I don't think they're ready to pay this payment. I think they're taking the mindset, well, if we can dethrone God, then we'll make the rules. And this so-called order that we have on our heads for our lives, once we get to be king, we can overturn that order. So I'm thinking that's what these guys are doing at this point. I think they wanted these women to experience sex with these women. Sex is powerful stuff, man. Don't ever think it ain't. Matter of fact, it's the biggest motivator of evil throughout this world. I mean, John the Baptist is the king that took his head, man. He took John the Baptist's head just on the whim and promise of some sexual seduction by the little girl that was putting on that dance. And John was a friend of this guy. I mean, they weren't like going out fishing buddies, but they knew and understood each other. And I think the guy, over the years, he came to like John very much. And hell, he served his head up, man, just for this intoxicating thing we call sex. It's powerful stuff. People have lost their lives, and people are serving life terms in jail, and I mean, so it's no small thing. So here we all are. We're being overturned from the plan of God, and we're doing the things. Again, you have to ask yourself, why the dope? Why the booze? The first things they did, man, was to establish all the things that opened the door to their kind, because there are more of them coming. I mean, these fallen angels, there's only a couple of hundred mentioned, these guys that came down in the beginning, but I think it's many, many, many more, and they're coming to this earth. And I think every time some kid picks up some dope or takes in a bottle of hooch, and then you notice there's change on this kid, this individual. You notice he's not the same person that he used to be, even in a short amount of time. These people are changing fast, and the reason is they just become a carrier. These spirits are introducing themselves to these flesh bodies, and they're taking these flesh bodies for a spin, and they're getting work done. They're getting their calls done through the bodies of men. The bodies of men are the ones who are harboring these fallen ones, these spirits. We're all walking around possessed. Isn't it funny, when Christ was on this earth and doing his walk and healing people, he always seemed to come up against so many possessed. And you look around, you say, I don't see that many possessed people. Because you got in your mind, the movie The Exorcist is what possession is about, and it ain't. It's a guy after the dollar. It's a guy running the conglomerate Fortune 500 companies. It's a guy who wants to make decisions for the rest of us in politics. These are our giants today. And this is what we're trying to reckon with, trying to put these things together so they can become real to us, and that's what they don't want us to do. Okay, that being said, looks like my 15 minutes is almost up, so peace out till the next video.